So I'm trying to build this into a narrative though, because it sounds like you don't think that we're going back to lower to lower prices, but you're concerned about the custody risk in the space. It sounds like you think there's the potential for another FTX like incident. And so it sounds like where you think that occurs is with the, just to make sure I pin this down, it's with these institutions that are now following the Saylor playbook. They're taking on this debt. Maybe they're, in the long tail digital assets doing the same. And now in order to kind of compete in this race that we have between these companies, there's the pressure to deploy that capital and put it to work. Is that essentially what you're saying?
Yeah, I would go at the base level. The reason why we're only a $2 trillion asset is because custody hasn't been figured out. Because if you think about it, like from your peers that are not educated about this space, general consensus, it still exists that digital assets or Bitcoin are at best speculative. And you hear this even in the common themes with the Dalios of the world and others are always telling you 2 to 3%. And we talked about this with James Safer, we had on the pod. They're writing a book, Post ETF World and What Happens. And they talk to all these individuals that say 35, 10, 15%. When they ask them, what's your portfolio? They're like 50+%. And where I'm getting at is that think about how great product market fit Bitcoin has, that we got to a $2 trillion asset. And people don't know if the underlying is going to evaporate overnight or not, because they don't know if the custodian is going to exist. Like, objectively, if you put all the custodians on a wall that have existed for 15 years and put a blindfold and threw a dart, you would, in a probability sense, hit somebody that's already gone belly up, that's gone. There's not a lot of custodians that have a track record of 8+ years, like a Coinbase. So the point being is that people look at this as a speculative asset, not because the underlying fundamentals aren't right, that there's only 21 million. It's not hard to understand Bitcoin. What's hard to understand it is once you get it, now you have a personal problem of how do you put material capital. And this is the part that the Bitcoiners don't get, is 12 words in self-custody is not hard if it's $10. Or if you're worth $1 billion and it's $10 million. It gets real hard if you're worth $1 billion and you need $250 million, because that's material, 25% exposure. And then that's when the problem happens. Are you going to trust a third-party custodian, even if it's Coinbase with it? Are you going to put it in self-custody? And that's why empirically, like on chain, over $1 trillion in this asset sits on these devices, because this has been the most sophisticated way to custody. You sever the internet connection. And what I'm saying is that in the future, the next 15 years, the existing models, how we got here, won't work with the amount of size that's going to come in. Now, to your question about how does it actually fall apart, there's a number of ways like that we don't even know of. There's unknown unknowns. Like think about Plus Token as an example. Like remember Plus Token? I still don't fully understand it, but it was a Ponzi in like Asia Pacific, and it was back.
Well, China, and it was like responsible for a huge amount of Bitcoin transaction fees at one point.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was part of the like false top when everyone thought we were running in 2019, and then the market basically went to that 12 and then back to 4. Or 6 or whatever. Point being is we're in the Wild West still of this space. And I don't think people understand that. And so the reality is that there's an incentive for this like digital bearer asset, and there's no shortage of different ways. And the easiest way that I can claim that it can happen again is whatever happened in 2022. The thing I would throw back to anybody listening or yourself, if you want to share, is like what changed in 2022 versus now that would cause us not to have what happened in 22 happen again.